So hello, my name is Alfred and welcome to my tech talk. The topic I'll be talking about is dynamic audio implementation with Ren'Py. I will cover the basic to a more advanced technique. The technique will be shown here should be more or less possible in other game engines as well, such as Game Maker Studio, Unity, whatever. A little bit about myself. I've worked using Ren'Py for over 6 years now. I've worked on several visual novel and game projects, the notable one here being a lead programmer in my Coreza visual novel. And hey, this is the first time I'm being a speaker here. And fun fact, this whole presentation is made in Ren'Py. This talk, I'm partnered with Tim Reichert, this guy right here. In case you didn't know, he is a composer, sound designer, audio director. Not only those, he is a project lead and writer in my Coreza visual novel. He participated as a speaker in last year's visual novel conference about what dynamic audio is. So this talk is meant to expand it further into the technical aspect of it. If you have any audio specific questions, Tim will help you on that to answer those. And lastly, his hidden talent here, as you can see here, is very good at singing. A friendly reminder, because this talk is oriented on the technical side, Ren'Py and Python code are used in this talk, along with some math. I will try my best to keep the code and math at minimum and make them more digestible. That aside, the source code of this talk and its script is available on GitHub. Link will be in the chat after the talk. Inside it, there are some extra sections, supplementary and unused materials. Alright, that's the introduction. Now let's get into the meat. First of all, what is dynamic audio? And here, the definition from Tim here. The dynamic audio is an audio that is modified or which sequence is modified during gameplay. The change can be a result of player's action, conscious or unconscious, or variables being randomized independent of player's action. TLDR, this means that audio that is playing or will be playing is changed by player's interaction or randomized. We can derive dynamic audio into two categories based on this. The first is being audio that is affected by player's action, and second, audio that is affected by random chances or randomization. I will dissect each of them further, starting by player's action. Before that, let's talk about audio channels for a second. By default, Ren'Py has 3 audio channels, which are music, sound, and voice. Each of these channels can play one audio at a time. And it is possible to queue multiple audios in a channel. This will be mentioned later in the talk. We can utilize audio channels further by putting them in layers, meaning like on top of each other. And this we call vertical rearrangement. For analogy, we can imagine audio layers as character customization screen. Each of these layers are customizable. Let me change the base, the eyes, the mouth. I can even hide them or show them like a Slenderman here. And this allows us to have pretty much customizable characters here. All right. Now, this is what it would look like if character customization looks in audio instead. Just like the counterpart, you can replace and mute them. In this case, I'm gonna change the drum, the back. I can mute the back, mute the drum, and so on. Alright, in a more straightforward example, let's mute the pattern channel. In this scene, as the character comes into view, the pattern channel becomes unmuted. And this would reflect the appearance of the character. So now that you have seen the demo, how is it done? There are 2 core ideas in here to make this possible. The first is custom audio channels, and the second being to synchronize these audio channels. Alright, the first is custom audio channels. In the demo, you've seen 3 custom audio channels. One of them is the back channel. This code is how you define this channel. We have the init Python, which executes at the very start of visual novel. In here, we register audio channel with the first argument being the name of the channel, which is the back. The second argument is the mixer. By default, mixer in Ren'Py are music, SFX, voice, which you generally can change in the preference screen. The last argument here is whether or not this channel can loop by default. Alright, let me play an audio in the back channel. How is it done? The code is simply this. Play chill back _1 in the channel back. Alright, the other core ideas to make vertical rearrangement possible is syncing audio channel. Ren'Py has a feature to play audio in multiple layers at the same time, which is called synchronous start or synchro start. Let me demonstrate it. On the top right, we have back and drum channel progress bar. This is the progress bar 0%. Here, the main character finally goes outside to finally touch some grass. Notice that both channels are playing at the same time, but the drum is muted. Then as the player progresses the scene, the drum channel is unmuted. Alright, let's rewind and see how it works. After showing the background scene here, seeing street light, we play both back and the drum channel. The first line is to play the back audio, and then the third line show the drum audio. Notice here that we have synchro start, which means that both of these should play at the exact same time. Then we set the drum volume to 0, meaning muted pretty much. Then as the player continues, we increase the drum volume to 1, meaning full volume. Alright, now that you've seen the dynamic audio implementation of that example, I will now step up the difficulty by a notch. In most visual novels, mouse is not utilized as much because all you need to do is, in most cases, is click to continue, choose an option, and other with buttons. But mouse allows you to do many more interactivities. One of which is to use mouse position. Remember how I pulled this panning demo at the audio test? Well, turns out you can control the panning using mouse. Here I go to the left, the panning goes to the left, and then to the right, and then center here. Not only those, you can move the source point here to the left, including its radius size. Alright, one important concept here you need to know is screen. You can imagine screen as a blank canvas. In it, you can put almost anything you want, including image, like so. You can make the image move using buttons here. I'm gonna move it up, down, left, and a little bit right. Now, what if we want to make the image move continuously? In screen, we have this thing called timer, one of which let us to change the image position for, let's say, 0.5 seconds. We can reduce the timer even more to 0.1 second. And you can see the smaller the timer, the smoother the movement go. I coined the term here timer-based screen to describe that screen that are constantly refreshes every period of time. Instead of moving image though, oh there she goes, we can use it to track players' cursor movement position. Here is the code on how you make it. We begin by setting up the variables here. We have the mouse position for the X and then for the Y. Then we define our screen here called cursor underscore position. In here, in this screen, we have text that says mouse is at the X coordinate of the mouse and then the Y coordinate of the mouse. And then we make sure to get the mouse X and Y using ren'py.getMousePos. Lastly is to have the timer set on repeat here, repeat, and refreshes about 0.05 seconds. Now, the thing I like about this method is that it allows for complex screen uses, as you saw earlier. The timer duration can be changed too, to allow flexibility on how often the screen should be refreshed. And I personally think it's easier to code it this way and to put it together. However, there are some cons, there are some caveats here. This method refreshes all interactivity instructions, which may not be ideal to some cases. If you experiment this and set the timer a bit too low, it may break how button hover works. And this method does not work too well for specifically version 7.5.2 to 7.5.3 and its Python 3 equivalent versions, because in that version, button hover changed in a not so supportive way. It would be great if this technique, which I call timer-based screen, is made into an actual Ren'Py feature, since it can be used to create minigames and much more. Alright, where were we? Alright, the mouse panning. Let's make this one. Suppose we have a circle with a radius 200 pixels, and the center coordinate of the circle, let it be A and B. We want to make sure that the mouse position when on the left is -1, the pan value. And then when on the right, it should be 1, which is panning to the right. I've done some math, so you don't have to think about the formula to determine the pan value. Here it is, fx, where the x is the mouse x coordinate, which equals to x minus a, then divided by circle radius. If you want homework, you can try to find how I came to that formula. Anyway, onto the code. We start by setting up our variables, because we only need to know the mouse x coordinate and the pan value. We define our screen, which is pan underscore mouse, which has two parameters. The radius of the circle and the x center of the circle. In it, we get our mouse x position. And to determine the pan value, we can divide this into three sections. The left side of the circle area, and then the right side of the circle. Right, the first is the left side. Pretty much is when the mouse position is the center minus the radius, which always equals to -1. And in the circle area, which is when the mouse x coordinate is less than the x center plus its radius. We use the formula we got earlier to determine our pan value. And for the right side, will always be 1. There won't be anything else. Then after we got the pan value, we set it to our music channel. Music channel set that pan into the pan value variable, 0 delay. Last but not least, to make sure this happens every 0.5 seconds, we set the timer. Alright, you have made it past the hardest part. Congratulations. If you have understood this far, you have more or less know the interactive side of dynamic audio using the player's action. Now let's get into the randomization. A simple example of this would be a simple button that makes a random sound each time the player clicks it. In this scenario, each time you click a button, it will jump into a label script which makes a random sound. The code looks something like this. First, we set a random value between 1 and 2. And then based on this number, we play a sound, which is the file's name is sound the number.ogg. All right, the last topic of this talk is about horizontal rearrangement using randomization. Instead of vertical, we increase the audio layers. Where the vertical audio layers, we only use one layer for horizontal rearrangement. We can utilize Q to this. You can imagine Q as a container. In this container, we can put in random numbers between 0 and 2, or 0 to 2. Random number here are supposed to represent audio files that will be later played. Here's the last demo of the day. In this demo, I have no cue. I'm not playing anything, currently -1. And then it's empty. And I'm gonna play music. Currently Q is 0. We're playing 0 as well. And then, thankfully, in Ren'Py, we can add more Q here. Random value between 1 and 2. 1 to 2. And we can even clear it too. Reset it and put it random stuff in there. Ren'Py allows it to add and reset at ease. And I highly encourage you to play around with this as its behavior is quite interesting. A simpler scenario would be a label script, something like this, where we loop it 5 times and it will execute these 2 lines of code. Where the first line we randomly pick 1 to 3, and then based on that number, we queue it to the music till the number.ogg. Alright, that's all about randomization in dynamic audio. You can certainly combine horizontal rearrangement and vertical rearrangement, which would make overall music complex sounding. This is what we did in Microizer too, in Wong. In conclusion, we have explored some dynamic audio implementation in Ren'Py, from players' interaction to randomization. We can achieve them thanks to audio channels, screen, and random number functions. I would like to thank Tim for helping me with this talk, along with some useful tips he gave me, Grant Sanderson for the inspiration to make a presentation like this one, Blackwing Binlan for the character assets, and you, audience, for coming here to this talk, and the fodders who is watching this right now on YouTube. This presentation is made using Ren'Py, a Ren'Py template for presentation like this, totally inspired by Manim Anim Engine and Ren'Py 751. Do you have any question?
Right. That's all right. There. Whoa. Damn it. This is going really fast. Okay, first question.
Thank you.
Hold on. There's a lot of people saying really nice things about this. So, okay. Do you know what the upper limit of how many instruments you can add in?
How many instruments?
Yeah, the maximum, like what's the maximum polyphony you can get on Ren'Py?
Yeah, you can have infinite amount of it. You can have as many as you want. Yeah, limited by CPU and RAM, depending on your PC. But in theoretical sense, you can put as many as you want.
Cool. Let's see. Does this mouse position function use pixels as its unit? What happens when the game window is resized?
It should be the same. It's based on the screen resolution, actually, the game resolution, not the screen resolution. So even if you minimize it or change the screen size, it should still detect the pixels correctly.
Cool. All right. How about modifying the sound, such as muffling music when underwater?
Modifying music based
like
on
I guess putting
what?
a filter on it.
Adding filters. We don't have filters yet, I don't think, in Ren'Py, but you can crossfade it with other audio. For example, currently you're playing a normal sounding sound, and then you can play something with filter below it. You can crossfade it pretty much.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Cool. Hold on. Which projects have you worked on that has this dynamic music implemented?
Mycorrhiza, one of them.
Mhm.
I have used on several game project as well. Like Notebook, but they are game jam, so you could access that later if you want. And then for something like timer-based screen, it would be that I used mini games. I use it for mini games like rhythm mini game, pretty much. That can be used.
Well, okay. So they're talking about the randomizer instead of making it random. Can they make it change at a choice part where the player has to choose, right? So they can, so you know,
Yeah.
they click on one versus the other.
Mhm. You can. You can change the audio, the music, the audio when you choose an option. You can reset it, change the cue, reset the cue, and do whatever you want with it. It's very flexible.
Cool. And Tim just linked to Micro's
Check
here.
out my Horizon.
Yep. Yep. And then someone asked, I thought there were only 3 Python channels. How is it possible that you can have more than 2 instruments?
Yeah, you can have more channels actually. Unless you mean like mixers. If you have like mixer, you can add more mixers too. You can have as many mixers as you want. You can have as many audio channels as you want to. So with those many channels, you can input instrument that you want in there, and then do the vertical rearrangement or however you want it. Yeah, by default is just music, sound, and voice, but you can add more.
Uh, yeah, Maxi just put a warning that they don't play nice with menus by default when you have a lot of mixers.
Oh,
Okay. Any other questions? We still have about 3 minutes left. Uh, there are a lot of
maybe do
people.
you have any audio related questions?
I was like, how did you get so based, Alfred?
How I get what so much
How
bass?
did you get so based? Not the audio
I
based.
grew up. I simply
Uh,
grew up.
mhm. Do you know if anyone has tried this with NPCKC's caption tool yet?
Oh, I haven't tried that. If you would like to test it, sure, you could go ahead. I have it on GitHub. You can test it yourself. That'll be interesting to see.
Uh, cool. Any other questions? If I don't see any, okay. So the next speaker is, I believe, Ayel. So you can get your stuff set up. And thank you so much, Alfred.
Right, thank you as well.
Hello, everyone. It's going to be hard to pass after this masterclass. We are going to change completely of mood.
Cool. All right, I see your slides, and we're a minute early. Who cares? You can go ahead.
Okay.